God is going to get answer. Before the close, if you have any questions to ask, you'll be able to answer one or two of them, I hope. If we can. Continuation of that.
Right. What I think now I'd like to do, ladies and gentlemen, is to explain to you about the convents and monasteries, simply because it's important to know why these actually originated. I know that from what we may read today is that they've been brought about through various rules and laws and things like that. But originally, the idea was that people could live a life that was completely against anything monetary or material. Life was to be devoted in service and to be sons and daughters of the Spirit. In other words, everything that they do was to be moved by the Spirit. I think the idea was very beautiful. I think what has happened, or what did happen, was that the whole purpose of it became lost, because the rules made were not made by God, because they were made by priests and various other people, which I think was wrong, because if we are to get direct with God, then we should train people to be able to receive from God. And the nearest we have at the moment, of course, are mediums. And they, in my opinion, including myself, could do far more to help the spirit world than what we do. And in fact, even our healers, I think, could be better healers if they were able to completely give and devote their life so that they could be moved by the Spirit. The whole point about mediumship and about people giving their life to God is that they are giving to God. They genuinely do give and dedicate their life so that they are moved by the Spirit. We get confused between inspiration and what we receive as communication. So there is a lot of confusion even within the spiritualist movement, and also what we can receive psychically to what we can receive through mediumship itself. And I think that these are the things that need explaining and clearing so that we can build a movement that has this power of the Spirit, rather than a conglomeration of things that don't seem to be getting anywhere. Because unless we're very careful, the same thing will apply to spiritualism that actually has happened to the Christian Church. I think we shall be overloaded with rules and regulations, dogma, and things of that sort that shouldn't be there. I think that what we need is to have very few rules and very few regulations, and to receive more inspiration from the spirit world. I mean, after all, if we do follow the life of Jesus, he never made a decision unless he went into the silence and spoke with God and received information from his controls. One of his controls and guides, of course, was Moses, whom he very often spoke about. And he was the one that came back and guided Jesus from the other world. So did Elisha. So that we do realize that we do receive direct people that are in tune with us from the other world, who help us and guide us. This is part of the development that many often people fail to respond to. Our healers, just because they probably learn a little bit about healing and sit in prayer, believe that they build this power and they're able to give it. I don't think that that is correct for a healer. I think that a healer should sit equally in a developing class like mediums have to do, because if healing is done correctly, it is because you're a medium to do that particular work. And you've got to do equally as much development to develop that gift and make yourself a channel as you would any other gift. Simply because you've got to be able to make contact with the mind that is controlling, you're using, you're inspiring, you're overshadowing. And this is what we fail to understand. Now, when a medium is working, when a medium says, oh, I'm a natural medium, I don't have guides, they're not a natural medium at all, they're just a natural psychic. There's quite a difference. A person can give you messages be perfectly natural, don't sit in a developing class, but they're not a medium. They can't be a medium. They're really using a sense of which we've all got, which is probably more developed with them than it is with anybody else. But it doesn't demand a spiritual power. It doesn't demand a spiritual liking. All it demands is just you using a little bit of common sense and getting on with it. That's all it is. You get healers like that, who have what they call a natural power. We used to in the past call it a magnetic power. The early healers were called magnetic healers. They didn't understand it, but they knew they had a power. And they knew that people, when they touched them, would benefit from it. And it was called magnetic because people felt this sort of magnetism coming from the particular healer. We then studied it and found that the great healers, such as Harry Edwards, Mr. Parrish, people of that caliber, George Chapman, and a great man named Jones, who had the doctor, the Indian doctor as a guide, were remarkable healers because they developed beyond this magnetic healing into spiritual healing, because they were overshadowed or controlled or used by guides in the other world who came here to provide that particular power and to use people in that particular gift. So that we must make it different. We must look at it correctly. And you realize that no matter who you are or what we are, whether we're born with wonderful gifts or not, we've still got to develop. The developing circle is tremendously important. And then what you need afterwards is to have a developing circle, or a circle. Don't like the word developing circle too much. I like it in the beginning, but I think afterwards they should be called particular circles. And I think they should be called usually circles with a name, so that they become an important circle performing particular duties. I like mediums and healers that even though they're healing and very good mediums, they still sit in closets. They still sit in the silence, they still make contact with their controls and guides, because it is important we keep this direct link. Ours is a spiritual work, and therefore we must maintain that spiritual link. There is never a time that we can work independently of the spirit. We must work and cooperate with it. So the development in the early stages is to find out who is working with us, how our work is going to develop, and then when we are developing and have developed, it is to maintain that link and maintain that power, so that we realize that our work is not just coming from us, but it is coming from higher forces. I have a little girl, as some people here have met, who's been with me all my life. People very often say, well, why is she kept as a child? Well, she hasn't. She only projects as a child. If we saw her, which I have the privilege to do, she's quite different. But then aren't all the guides different? I mean, after all, if you read the book of Red Cloud Speaks, to the great medium Estelle Roberts, you'll read that her guide, although the impression was that he was a Red Indian, and people very often saw him as a Red Indian, was only because he came and they asked, and they said, well, what do you want me to be? And so someone said, well, we think you're an Indian. Obviously this gentleman had been an Indian in some existence that he had, and he projected that particular form, and the name that he gave was certainly the name that they'd chosen for him. It wasn't his real name. And in the seances that happened, you can read in the voiceless sound, written by Bell, on one occasion this guide built and he was able to feel the hair of Estelle Roberts, who was sitting next to him, and he was then asked to feel the hair of the particular control, and where hers was soft and very fine, the hair of the control was very coarse, very thick, and very heavy. So two entirely different hair. And when he felt the hair, he realized there was no headdress on the particular spirit, and yet he was supposed to be a Red Indian. And when he felt him, he really was just an ordinary person with beautiful hair, very coarse, very long, and he felt around his face. He certainly had a large nose, where Estelle Lawrence had a very small one. Quite different. But, ladies and gentlemen, we have to learn. These people come back to play a part. And when we say to them, who are you? They say, does it matter? Surely it's the knowledge that we've come, the service we intend to bring, that's more important than our name. And very often they will say, what do you want to be called? And you choose the name, and that's all they accept. So this idea that they say, which they do, oh, why do you have Red Indians and why do you have Chinese? Because, ladies and gentlemen, they have been far more spiritual than the Western people. Their religious beliefs were far ahead of ours. And they are people that have evolved. They do not become Red Indians in the spirit world. They drop that. That goes to the body. You become spirit. But because you have to return, it's no use everybody coming back looking the same. It's no use everybody coming back looking the same. They come back not just as spirit, but in the form of which they have chosen to be able to project from the other world back here, to give them individuality. The same with this little girl. Once she was a child, she passed away as a child, she projected as a child. And the reason she did was because she used to play with me as a child. And therefore I couldn't have a grown-up, I had a child. And she was attracted to me, I used to play with her. And she was very good, actually. I was very ill for a very long time. And I think they thought that I wasn't going to live. So I was in hospital for a long time. I suffered with an illness where I always asleep, couldn't wake up. It's only in later years I found out the reason that I had that illness. So I was always asleep, they couldn't wake me up. And I'd be walking along the road, and I always had to have one member of my family with me, and all at once I would go on the floor and go fast asleep. And it was an illness they were unable to cure. It had to sort of find its own level. And so when I went back to school, after being away quite a time, I honestly didn't know the answers, and I couldn't do the work. And this little girl who was so marvellous used to do it for me. And she cheated. And I cheated because she told me. And I used to provide the answers, but not the work. And so when my work came to, there were the answers all right. She got the answers. When it came to how did you get the answer, especially in arithmetic, it was just impossible. I couldn't. I used to ask her, and she used to give it to me, and I used to write it down. And then the headmaster sent for me, brought me to the classroom, into his office, wrote a letter to my mother and father, saying that there was something very strange. They knew I didn't know them, but how could they explain why I knew the answers? And my father, he was at the war by now, and he said to my mother, there's something wrong with this child. I told you from the beginning there was something wrong with this child. Look what's happening now. I mean, the child was going silly. And doesn't do the work, can't do the work, but it's providing the answer. Where is he getting from? He's your child. And this I went. So of course my mother had to talk to me, and she said, now come on. And I said, well, I can't do the work, but my little friend goes, are you cheating? So I said, no. I'm told, yes, but I'm not cheating. Well, who's cheating? I said, well, she is. I put the blame on her. And my mother realized what was happening, that this girl was giving me the answers. But how she got the answers, I mean, she sneaked and had a look what the answer was, came back and projected it into my mind, and I got it. But when they said work it out, it was just impossible, she didn't know how to work it out. And so I couldn't work it out. So these children are right. I mean, she was a very wise child. She'd been over in the other world a long time. She'd matured in the spirit world. But that is not how she came back. She came back as a child to be with a child. In those years, she's remained like that. So that I would know her, I know when she's around, I know every little move that she makes, I know everything about her. If I'm in trouble, I sense her, I know that she's there, and if there's something going wrong in my meetings, she sends up a coloured ball, and I know it's her straight away, because that's what we have between us. And it is a sort of combination of two people that are in tune with one another. They are real, very real. They're not just a figment of our imagination, completely real. And separate personalities entirely. Now that's what we have to develop. The close contact with they. We can't work without them. The psychic can. Now let's explain to you how a psychic can work. See, a psychic, first of all, can look at you and they can pick immediately the sort of person you are. A psychic can do that. So can a medium. But a psychic is able to sense from you various things. And they will start off by saying, oh, love, you're going through a rather difficult time. You're a bit worried about somebody. And, oh, and you've had a passing some time ago. And then they wait for an answer and build on it. Because they're waiting. They can't continue until they've got what? It's like the person that says, I can't work, dear, unless I have your voice. I work on your voice. That person is not a medium. That person is a psychic. Because you're working on vibrations that they're sending to you, and you're picking up from the vibration. A medium does not work like that. A medium has to completely cut themselves off from everything to do with this world and concentrate only what's coming from them from the eternal world. Entirely different. And yet, you see, they are mistaken one for the other. Some of you probably read it a while ago, where I said that the two superstars in our movement were not mediums. And I said they were very, well, I didn't say they weren't mediums. I said they were excellent psychics, but not very good mediums. And of course, that's great. And because I was trying to explain that anybody can give a person a message if you get fed with information and you are guided into it by the answers that you receive. Anybody can be taught how to do that, but that is not mediumship. If you want a spirit and you come to a medium and say, I want to contact so-and-so, don't go to a medium like that. Go to a psychic, yes. They will give you all the information that you want, because they'll pick it up. They won't pick it up direct with the person. That's not how a medium works. A medium has to work not only with people that they have learned to work with on the other side, but they must learn to adapt onto the higher level, so that you're getting a direct contact that is not interfered with by anything that is here. I always tell you a very lovely story, which is, I always tell people when a communication is a communication, and a psychic is a psychic. I have a great aunt, and when I was at Stansted just a few weeks ago, I told people to find a book in our library there that was written about great mediums in the past. In it was my mother's uncle, who was John Taylor, a very fine medium, and her aunt, who was Mrs. Taylor of Blackpool. And they were aunt and uncle to my mother. Now this aunt of ours, who was there, was a very fine medium, the medium the lady that took my mother to her first spiritualist meeting. Because in our family there'd always been, on my mother's side, way back, psychics, mediums, people of that kind. Unusual people, strange people. But nevertheless, that's where we came from. And so that it was there. On my father's side, of course, were Roman Catholics, because there was Irish in our family, and by the way, and Scots as well. So we got a little bit of you as well. But nevertheless, this was on my father's side. On my mother's side, they were all mediums and psychics and all kinds of people. Well, this aunt, extraordinary woman, the most remarkable medium. But she was an alcoholic. And she was an alcoholic. And of course, when she chose the place to open up to take her meetings, it would have to be over a wine bar. And if anybody knows Blackpool, there is a wine bar there called Yates Wine Bar. Some people who've ever been must have heard about it. It's a very famous bar. Well, my aunt, or my great aunt, my mother's aunt, had a room there. She used to take a service and meeting there every week, without fail, right the way for years. And it was known as Mrs. Taylor's room. And it was right over the bar, you know, right over. We went up some stairs. Then we were all drinking underneath. She was all right. And she used to go in there before she came to us. And of course, she got worse as time went on. And I went one day with my mother, and we travelled out. My mother wanted me to meet this aunt, and I was only a boy. And she said to me, now don't be afraid of her or anything like that. She's very nice, but she might not be just right. We've heard about her. Of course, when we got in, she was... Oh, it's you, Fanny, is it? And she said, yes, I brought Gordon. Oh, this is him, is it? He's the one that's following you, is he? Well, it better be better than you. This aunt, she was a remarkable woman. But she was absolutely drunk. And my mother in the little room at the back said, oh, you can't go on the platform tonight. I'm going on that platform tonight, Fanny. You're not taking my... Mother said, I'll take your service. No, you're not. I'm taking that service. I've taken it all these years, I'm taking it now. Well, she was. My mother was at the back, pushing her onto the platform, getting her on. It was packed out. They were standing down the stairs. That was how popular she was. She was a marvelous medium. But she was drunk. And for some reason, I don't know how it happened, she gets onto the platform. Mother was getting ready, you know, she'll never be able to stand up. Oh, but didn't she? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. Before you knew where he was, she was so sober, you'd never believed it. I mean, to think that that woman could stand up and go. It was just as though she was a different personality altogether. And she began her demonstration, and quite honestly, she was quite amazing. And there was it was all packed down the stairs, and all at once she said, I want to speak to a man down those stairs. His wife is here, and he's down there. He doesn't know what he's doing here, but send him up. She gave a name, and by all accounts, there was a man coming up and brought him in, and she said, you didn't know you were here? She says, no, where am I? He says, I don't know what I'm doing here. He'd been followed this queue by all accounts. So he got there, wondering where he was. I think he was expecting to go in Yates's wine bar. And instead of that, he found himself in a spiritual state. Confronted by a medium that said that he got a message from his wife. And of course she gave marvellous evidence. I mean, it really was quite, it was astounding. And she said to him, you don't know why you're here? And he said, yes. And she said, you know, you've got to change your way of life. You're just wasting your life. And she was going out. She said, I'm coming down, I'm going to feel in your pockets. And he said, no, you're not. She said, yes, I am. This was from the platform to the man. She said, your wife says I have to come and feel in your pockets, and I'm going to feel in your pockets. Hold him there. She comes down, she goes into his pocket. The poor man must have been embarrassed. And she takes out a bottle of poison. She said, your wife tells me that you're going to take your life tonight because you feel that there's nothing in life for you. You're just wasting your life, aren't you? She was talking to him. And tears were rolling down. He absolutely broke down. But he was carrying a bottle of poison. He made up his mind to take his own life. But ladies and gentlemen, he didn't even know he was in a spiritualist meeting. He just one drink. But the spirit got him there. And there happened to be a medium. I'm afraid she was drunk. But ladies and gentlemen, the spirit moved it. The channel may not have been the best of channels, but the spirit found a way of getting it across. She was the one to do it. Why? If we'd received that, we would have never dreamed of saying, I've got to come down and feel in your pocket. Nor would we have hammered home to him. But she did. She was right for him. We would be wrong for that contact. But she was right. Not only because she was so definite about what she'd got, but she didn't care what she said. She went at him. And she changed his life completely. Absolutely completely. Because at last his wife had got through, and he realized that he thought his wife was dead. And to know that she was alive gave him hope. Now, ladies and gentlemen, think about it. Look at the way the Spirit had moved him. Look how he put him in that particular queue. And then all at once, though he couldn't get in, he was fastened in. And for the communication to say, send that man up. His wife is here. I want to talk to him. That's what I'm talking about. There are minds more vital than ours. The spirit that was moving that lady. Immediately when the meeting was over, ladies and gentlemen, she was drunk again. But during the time she was... Now why? Why? How did it happen? If she wasn't using her spiritual power, she couldn't have done it. If she was using merely psychic powers, she would have been drunk. It had all been mixed up. She couldn't have continued. But she was right when she said to my mother, Fanny, I can take this service. I'm going to do. I always have. I will show you. And immediately she got up. She was no longer the aunt that was drunk. That was to the body. But she was now a channel for the spirit. The spiritual consciousness was at work. And while she was at work, while that was at work, it was flowing through. Of course, the spirit will use channels that they, in the normal way, they would not have used. But because the gift is there, and because it's a spiritual gift, what happens to our physical is not affecting us spiritually. It isn't interfering with that, because she removed it by being able to use senses that are separate from our physical senses. Our physical senses were drunk, but our spiritual senses were not. They were vibrating onto the higher level for communication. Now that's where we have to look at those that are really using these great spiritual senses. They are entirely separate. We have to learn how to use them. It's like the person who says, I am inspired by my guide. No, ladies and gentlemen, you are not inspired by your guide. You are inspired by God. You are influenced by your guide. Quite different. God inspires. God fills us. Because God is within us, that is able to bring up within us feelings, things that inspire us, not from an outside source. God is an inside source. The inspiration comes from within. From outside, it is an influence. It is a projection of thought upon ours. It is a movement, and therefore it becomes overshadowing. See how everybody gets it wrong? Simply because we must define the difference, always, between what's of ourselves to what is of spirit. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's have a look. Here, let us take, for example, we have a medium that is developing, or is developed in giving a demonstration. Now, they have got in front of them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people. They're in a sort of group, and the medium is going to give them a message. So supposing the medium starts by saying, righto, we'll start there. I don't know, I'm going to start with you now. Could your mother be in the spirit world? No. Could you then know someone as the someone that's a mother figure that's passed over? Yes. Now, could this be your grandmother? No. But it could be an aunt. Oh, your aunt is here then. But it isn't a direct contact. It's what we call 20 questions. You see, yeah? What you're doing is you picked up somebody that's possible to have had a mother, so you're making a link. Now, once you start off like that, every message is going to be identical. Everyone's going to be done in the same way. And therefore, though you'll get some yeses, it is not a direct communication. Now, how should you work? Well, the first thing you do is you can't work until you've got a contact. That's the first thing you've got to go for. First of all, who is here from the spirit world? Because if you're going to go start off by giving them a reading straight away, before you've made contact, then all is going to be readings, because you're only on that level. That is, that you're using your psychic powers to sense, to feel on the level of the person. Now that's what we call being psychic. Now, one of our mediums will say, I want somebody named Taylor, I want somebody named so-and-so, or is there somebody here that knows this? Now come on down, love, I want to see you. I can't work unless I can see your face. And they come from a vast hall right in front of the medium. Now that medium can't possibly communicate with the spirit world. They're relying upon you to project sufficient sufficient information for them to tell you. It tells you immediately she can't be a medium. It's impossible to be a medium, because a medium doesn't depend where you are. A medium doesn't depend of you. All you need is an acknowledgement. Are you following it? Yes, it doesn't matter now if they leave the hall, as long as they can be listening and you can get the answer back. You don't rely upon the person. You rely upon the spirit. That's the contact you're after. So all the person is that's there is a person to acknowledge what you are receiving from the invisible world, from people that are manifesting to you. Now, what happened this morning while I was talking to them? I heard a voice say Livingstone. Then I got a contact of a communication with a person named Livingstone living. And therefore, your link then is who was there from the other side, knowing that there was some conversation between the person and the Livingstone that was coming in from the other side. So we have then to look at that particular situation. You don't take the person, all they do is yes or no. But what you're after is who gave the name of Livingstone. Who was there from the other side listening to a particular conversation, of which they then spoke about the particular conversation or situation that the person was involved with. You're still searching to find out what it's all about. So we now know, or would know, that someone belonging to the Livingstone was there, interested in this person's life and the effect it is having somewhere upon the earth plane that they want to go. You've still got to realize you cannot, the Livingstone isn't here. So you can't pick it up from them. The person that was the person talking to them. A person involved, or a person that knows something about it. So the spirit world are using that person to relay the message that's really going to go eventually for the person named Livingstone. Now that is the sort of situation we're talking about. Now supposing you're a psychic, you would have said to the lady, by the way, have you been talking to someone very recently? Yes. Was this so-and-so, so-and-so? Oh yeah, so-and-so and so-and-so and so. Yes, that's right. That's a psychic demonstration. But if you say, there is someone here that says that they know the name of Higginson, and that there has been a conversation which affects them, they're speaking of so-and-so, then ultimately came, if you remember, the name of Buchan, and then came, right at the last, a lady who came forward and said, I'm Granny Buchan. We now get how the communication is building up. It begins to sift it out until we now know that Granny Buchan was listening to the conversation. The Granny Buchan was the one that was connected to this lady that we were after, to find a link why she was involved with it from the other side. See the difference? Entirely different. And where it's all going to start, ladies and gentlemen, is in the circle where you begin. So what do? You teach people then how to be psychic. And then you say, now don't forget it, but I'm going to show you now how to be a medium. So I want you now to forget all that. And you apply the same thing from the other side. Have you ever done any work? Especially, haven't you really? Is it about time you did? No, at all. Have you done any work? There's somebody here that has. Where are you? Who's been on the platform? Little girl. Which is her? Here. Oh, but you've worked independently, haven't you? As a medium.
Not really.
Stand up here. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to show you how you thus begin. First thing I want you to do is, I'll pick on the person. If you know the person that I'm going to pick on, will you please say so? Don't go on if you know the person. There's a lady, you're right in the corner there, right at the back with glasses. Do you know this lady?
Yes.
Do you know her very well? Do you know a lot about her? Does she know anything about you? Good. Right. Come over here so you can see her face. That's a nice face, you see. It's a good face, but it tells you such a lot. Now then, I want you to tell me now something about her. First of all, what sort of person you think she is? Just do everything that I tell you and don't give anything that you want together. You tell me exactly what you think she's like. What sort of personality is she?
I think she's worried.
Don't contact any spirit world, just tell me what you think. You think she's a worrier?
Yes.
Right? Do you think that she's a person that's normally happy? Will you say she's a happy person?
Mm-hmm.
Right, say so.
Yes, she's a happy person.
Good. Now, is she at the moment a person that you think has any problems or troubles? Do you think that she's a carefree person or a person that worries herself and at the moment she is very concerned at the present time? What do you think?
No, I don't think she's concerned with that.
You think that she's sort of quite reasonably happy with no problems?
Yeah.
All right, good. Right, do you think she comes from a big family? Do you think she's married? Do you think she has a family? What do you think about her?
I think she comes from a family of, she's not an only child.
You don't think she's an only child? No. Are you an only child? No. How many do you think's in the family?
Not a huge family. That's about 4.
How many in your family?
2.
2. Does that mean 2 in your own plus mother and father?
No, 4, including father and mother.
That's it. Make it fit. Now, keep talking about her now. I want to know as much about her as possibly can. Just look at her and sense it. Get your feelings to her. As though you're psychometrizing things. Do you think she'd go all to pieces if she met trouble? You know, get a lot of people, if trouble comes, they go all to pieces. Do you think she's like that?
No, not really.
What would you say about her?
I think she probably just keeps going. I think she might get worn down if the trouble was persistent.
Yes.
And then she'd get weighed down by it. I don't think she'd back off it.
Now, you see what she looks like. Now, don't take wrong what we're going to do. How old do you think she is? Approximately. Be careful. You think she's like about 40s or 50s, would you? You better shake your head, dear. Is she off the mark or is she on the mark?
43.
Pardon?
I'm 43.
43, that's bad. You're making a little bit over than what she is, but not much. You said 40s to probably 50. No, it's not too bad, actually. Now, what I'm asking you to do is to sense people, to become feeling for people, to be able to judge people, to be able to sense the type of person she is. Not asking to see anything, because that will come later. Now, we've got some character about her. You think that she's a woman that wouldn't go all to pieces, and you don't think she's a person that allows worry to particularly get her down. The one thing about her is that, although you've said that, to be quite honest, she does. She's a person that feels everything inside. And if you want to hurt her, don't say anything, just a look will do it. She can sense immediately because she's tremendously sensitive to things that are. And she has gone through a period, actually, where sensitivity has been greatly there, absolutely tense and there, because she's like that. She can't help it. So she's built her life on that, as though there is a tension. And I think that she has gone through a lot of experiences that have tended to pull her down a little bit. And at one time, her faith was very much tested because she seemed to go to that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, I thought that was right. Now, we've got that personality. Now, you've got her. That's the sort of person she is, you see here. close your eyes, and with her there is someone. Now you tell me now. Ignore her completely. You've got her link. You've got the type of person she is. Now, ignore her. Let her vanish out of your sight. But there is someone there that's trying to get a contact. I want you to sense, if you can feel it. And then I want you to talk about it to me. Not to her, to me. And tell me who you think it is. Everybody can make a mistake. Don't look at her. Okay. It's there. Keep the person in your mind that you know you be, but don't let it influence you. So what you're doing is you've tuned in. Now let's see who's there, because there is someone there.
Who's a man?
Sorry?
A man.
A man. Go on. Concentrate on the man now, as you were concentrating on the lady. The man is what we want. We want to know something about him. Same sort of impressions.
It's her grandfather.
A grandfather. What about him? What sort of man? Pleasing? Pleasant?
Yes, I think you're a quiet sort of a man. And thoughtful man.
Thoughtful man, yes. How old about?
70s. Quite young.
White hair, did you say? Go on.
He was wise, but not wise in the sense of having a wide education, but being wise through experience of his life and through watching.
Yes. Right, you've given her that particular gentleman. As a matter of fact, I think you probably would know who that man is. Would you know very much about your grandfather at all? No, I didn't think you did. But you could accept him from what you've been told, that sort of personality. It is there with her. First of all, I ought to tell you, although the man's there, there was a lady there that has been very close to her, that she's definitely missed the presence of, and she has a definitely younger influence with her as well, so that she has got two people, one young and one a little bit older, both there with her, and those are the two people that she would really like to know more about. Come on, that's great, isn't it? That's it. Now, the point is the gentleman is there, which you've got, so that you've picked him up, so that it means that you've got him. But then he's got to direct you to the contact. The one thing that is the barrier between herself is her grief. She is a woman that feels absolutely very emotional. You can get very emotional. And when these two passings happened, it was like as though something had gone out of her own mind. It was as though she'd missed something. A light had gone out with you. That's correct, isn't it? Yes. Now, you see, that's what's there. You've got to get that. But you get it through your link. Get your first contact. Realize that he's there. He'll direct you with it. Keep him there so you know you've got him. And then you should sense, as you're going along, I don't think you know this gentleman, but he is telling me that there are two close links belonging to you of where you want to contact. See what I mean? And then you're getting it. Now, you're not allowing her to interfere with it. Can you see what I mean, ladies and gentlemen? You've got to learn, first of all, how to tune in to people, because you're going to do the same thing on the spiritual side. You've got to find out about those people. You're not going to do it if you're going to wait for the spirit people to tell you. You've got to help them, because your mind then is tuning in, getting onto the level. And as you so do, you pour it through, you see. It comes through. So you pretty well know. You know the name of Kath or Kathleen or Kath. Is this correct? Because they're wanting to be remembered, you see here. And I feel that it should link you up a few years ago. So it does. Is this correct?
Yeah.
Good, that's right, you see here. Now we've now got a link. So we're linking in, you see, onto the link, but you hold the spirit link. You can talk to her about things, but you must leave it where it is. Immediately you've got your spirit link, that's where you keep it. See, all the time you keep it. So you're getting the two levels. Always tuning in. I enjoy it looking at a person, seeing how nice they are, and looking at them. Then you tune a little bit more, saying, a bit worrying type, a bit excited, and you learn. Then when you're talking to them, you just drop little things in, and you say, you know, little things that come out. You prove to yourself you were right in what you got. You see, I enjoy that, and I like to talk to people because I already know what they're going to say to me when I'm talking back. You see, and as I do, I'm tuning in to the other side. And I very often tune into the other side. And I've had it many times. When we've been holding conversation, I've heard a voice say, don't take a notice what she's saying, you know. She's only saying that. And because there's someone on the other side that knows. And you can have a very nice sort of chat, you see, one to the other. And you can sort of say to the spirit that you're getting, what do you think about that? And say, oh, yes, I know. I know all about it, yes, you know. So you see, you're bringing in the other world. Okay? Good, good girl. Now, would you like to go and sit down now?
Yes.
Now, you really, you know, you're very buoyant, and that's the way to be. Who else? Come on. Here's your chance. You'll never have another chance to be with me. Come on.
Maureen. Maureen, yes. Maureen up.
Come on, Maureen.
I wouldn't stay at home.
Would you like to come by my side? I'd like what I'd like to do is to just give me two contacts. One that is a psychic one, and one that is a spiritual one. Do you mind?
No, I've never done it before.
Well, do it.
What, just a psychic contact, just pick on anyone.
Anything you like.
Difficult.
No, I know it is difficult once you're a medium. I know. I
don't
enjoy
know
it.
why. Well, this is not a, well, no, it's
Go
not
on.
a psychic contact. Like that lady in the middle there, this lady.
You've just done your hair.
Yes.
Go on. Has she got any colours? Well, let you and I have a nice bit of sun together.
Colours.
What are the colours? Go on, tell me.
Well, first colour I see around her is turquoise.
Oh, turquoise. Good girl.
Turquoise. And
Then let me write it down first. Then give me the other one.
turquoise, and there is a pink. She has
Oh,
a-
I did I spell it?
turquoise, and there, I get a pink.
That'll do. What pink?
There's a pink with her. She has a very sort of loving disposition. She's a
Yes,
lady.
pink. Good,
Ah,
yes.
yes.
What's the next colour?
Blue
Blue.
with a little gold.
There's a little girl in the blue.
Yes.
Now then, if you've seen those colours, you obviously know what colours are. You've actually picked some very spiritual colours, haven't you?
Oh, I don't know about turquoise. Pink is my
Well, pink is the emotion colour and is the love colour. Therefore, she has a... Would you mind if I...
No, you go on, because
I
yes,
mean, now
yes,
you
I
find
know.
your other link on the other
What,
communication on the other side. The spiritual link now. But wait until I've finished. Turquoise, ladies and gentlemen. Turquoise, yes. Turquoise. First of all, may I just ask you something? You must be a very sort of intimate family. Your family is a very intimate one. And one that if something's upsetting one, it's upsetting the other one. So there's the lady behind. And it means, of course, that you've been brought up like that, but
Yes.
brought up always to sort of see where your responsibilities were,
Yes.
and to keep to those responsibilities, you see here, because that is what this colour actually means. It means that you were brought up not in what I call an unreligious family, but a very practical family, that you had to sort of concern yourself with everyday things as well as with spiritual things, but not to waste things either. You were certainly brought up that you are to work and not to sort of waste your time. And I would have thought in your life you have looked back and realized how much it has helped you in the present time, because according to your life, in the way in which this is shown to Maureen, that your life has been during the past 2 years where you've had to be the steadying influence to your own family. You've had to hold it in check. Do you know what I mean? If it hadn't, then I think the family could have gone through a very trouble-stormy period, you see here, because it looks as though everything built up in the last 2 years. I thought in the last 2 years is how everything has had to be handled very, very carefully with you. Would you accept that? Good. Now, pink, of course, is the love, which means that there is a love. I think your person and your family would hold together right to the last. I don't think for one moment you'd ever lose faith with those that are very close to you. I think that you would have to do that. And I think that here shows that someone very close to you has passed through a very rough period. I have a thought somehow with health because of gold coming in. So you've had a troublesome time with someone through health conditions. And I would have thought that their life has been, you know, one of those that you've just had to go up and down according to how it was in their life. Someone's passed away that belonged very close to the family, and I felt it had come rather quickly in actual fact. Someone that wasn't expected to pass, seemed to pass, and seemed to throw things a little bit out for a while. Definitely was a gentleman, it wasn't a lady that passed away. And I rather felt that in some way things were held together, as though the family came together, you see here, because of this. And because of it, I think you came through it much better. That's what I feel is there. So it looks as though you were involved very much with someone that was in your family that suffered a passing, you see. And I think that they relied upon a great deal of help. You've gone through changing conditions, but you seem as though you're more settled now because you're accepting situations which you couldn't accept a while ago, but you're accepting them now. Do you understand that? I think sometimes we have certain things in our life that mean, but then we come to a point at when it's either accepting them or rejecting them, and rather than the reject it, I think you've come to accept it. Do you understand that? It is right, isn't it? Good. Now then, if this is so, then the month of June, July are 2 months where there's some anniversary, because it seems as though it could be a birthday, and it could be probably even a wedding, that sort of thing, because it's a joining together in some way, a sort of an anniversary. So it would be June, July, between those 2 months. So one could probably be in June and the other in July. And it should affect also the month of October and November. So there are 2 months in that part, and 2 months in the later part. In the later part is definitely a birthday, and the other one could be a passing. I felt it was one before Christmas, so it was summer. Again, I feel it was a man, you see here, because that's where it comes. But they come into your life and they affect your life in some way. You'll find October might have been probably your father's father, or something like that, or to do with your father.
It's my father's birthday.
It was your father's, that's what it was, you see. So it had to be like that. You've got some influence of your father with you, you see here. And it's because of that that it comes into this colour range. In this colour range comes that particular sort of month. Okay? So your dad must have had the influence.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, he did.
Good.
Yes.
You were right,
Can I
you see.
pursue that just a little bit further?
Please,
It's
yes.
on the side of thing. I would feel quite strongly that there has been a point in time, not so very long ago, when your faith was tested. It's almost as if you hit the depths. That's correct.
Yes, that's right.
Yes. And also, there's a strong feeling of a door. Now, take this symbolically, because I am speaking symbolically. But a door was closed for you. Almost as if, and there was a sort of turning away. There is a new road. I walk a new pathway. But I will tell you this, you walk that pathway, you have started to walk a new pathway, but you will walk it with a straight back and very straight shoulders, because there will be a change. There's a turning over, that's the only way I can describe it, of circumstances. And you will go forward, and you will go forward into joy. Now, that's not psychic, I'm sorry, I just heard that you will walk forward, and you will go forward into joy. All right? Does the name Margaret mean anything to you? Because someone is calling Margaret.
Margaret?
Margaret, yes.
Even just Margaret, my sister-in-law, but she hasn't passed over.
No, that's all right. I just hear a voice calling Margaret. Just...
Then if so, and now you're on the other link,
I'm
there
sorry
is a
about
link
that.
with Margaret on the other side.
Yes.
And this passed over, that is very close, and is trying to get a contact with her.
Yes. Has Margaret been well enough? Is Margaret...
Yes, she's fairly well.
Yes.
Well, as far as I know.
Yes, well, that's very good. You've got, you see, the conditions that you've given are identical with the colour range that she's got there, and with the situation she's facing up to the present time. So you have picked it up very well, and got the contact. And the closing door was where she's had a faith change, tried,
Yes.
you see here, and now she's decided.
And she will go forward. She is going forward into joy. And I'm right there because I
Well,
feel that it's
the goal,
here,
you see,
very
is the
strong.
attainment. Therefore, because the goal is there and she's moving it up, the goal really for the future will start to come out, which means to say that her mind is better now to accept a situation and that she will be successful because goal is the achievement. She will attain it. She will achieve what you're looking for. See here. Okay?
Yes, thank you.
Yes. She's got the will to do it. Yes. Did you like that?
That was fine. Can
No,
I just do one thing more if I'm getting to do this? I mean,
Yes.
I don't usually do this. I have someone calling Jack. I'm just trying to do this the way you have said. I have someone calling the name Jack. I want a Jack. I know there's one in the front seat, but I want somebody by the name of Jack. Is there any other Jack here other than Jack on the front? I have someone calling Jack, and I'm getting other two names with the Jack. I'm getting the name of Ella, and I want a Jack and an Ella, a connection. Is that you?
Yes, I can be Ella.
Is that you? Can you also take the name Donaldson?
No.
You
No,
can't.
but I can.
Oh, yes.
I can place a Jack on the other side of the grade.
Right. I want someone who can take Jack, Ella, and the name Donaldson, and there is, with this name Donaldson, there is a connection with water. This person lived beside water, or very near to water.
The Norfolk Broads.
Norfolk Broads, that route. Right. This contact must be for you. Must be for you. Because I feel I'm getting this contact with water, and I have to speak to you about water. And again, symbolically, because I do feel that you yourself are around you. There's a condition. I feel it's you yourself, but I spoke to you earlier. There's a condition of sort of deepish water, or water that's heavy water, not easy to move. Correct?
Yes.
Yes. There's to be again. There has to be a bit of a turnover. There has to be a bit of an upheaval before we go on to a sort of plateau. Can you understand that?
Yes.
I think you know, because I think you know what the turnover has to be.
Yes.
A condition has to be changed. There is someone involved in this with a very, very strong temperament. Very strong temperament. Very, very strong temperament. Very, very willful temperament. Excuse me for turning away. It's very strong temperament. All I can say is that I feel that, you know, there's a saying, pride goes before a fall. I don't know if this person has pride. Now, wait a minute, I don't know if this person has got pride.
Tremendous.
Right, okay. Strong temperament that there's going to be a levelling. And when I say levelling, it will be...
To be a battle of the giants.
Exactly. Okay, right, is that enough?
That's fine, thank you very much.
Just,
Yes, that's mine. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you will see that when Maureen said, I can't work as a psychic, which are medium, one does find it like that, but you can do it another way, and that is that way. In other words, you can then see a colour range, bring it down to the level where you can make it work, because it will work, and you can start to work onto that level. Now, did you notice immediately that the colours were given and it started, she got it. You see, she was right into it. Because you have to learn that if you can't get it one way, you can get it another. So there are all these different ways by which you're taught as a medium to use to get to what people want. You can have a person come in for a sitting, and immediately you're sitting there waiting for them to come in, and you are tuning in. You can be aware of everything to do with this person's life before they've knocked on the door. And it comes around you. You're aware of it, you see it, you can be aware of it. In fact, you can have a spirit very often that will come in and say, my daughter's coming in, by the way, will you tell her I'm here? You see? And as soon as she comes in, you say, by the way, your mother's coming in with you, you see? And you can get it like that. It's so real, but you've got to use the various ways by which you can make your contact. And if it is that you can, when you're learning, you'll find it easy to tune into a person and tell them a lot about themselves. When you begin to get them onto the other level, people do find it difficult. Because, you see, it is difficult. But people find it difficult by learning this method, then say to them, forget all about that. Now I want to know who's there from the other side, and they go, and nothing comes. Because they've got to learn to separate two lots of senses. Now Maureen said, quite rightly, I find it difficult to come to be psychic, because she immediately switched on spiritual senses. And therefore she was probing what she was receiving when she said, oh, I got this spiritually, because I heard it, you see here, which is not being psychic, you see. And that's what we need. You've got to define the two. So we train you with one, and then we say, now, who's here from the spirit world? Don't touch them. And what did Maureen say? I have someone calling Jack. So she then knew there was someone, and she had to tune in onto that. You see, you switch, get your contact, whatever it may be, switch, hold it in exactly the same way as I was teaching Moira, is it? Moira, who are you? Val, sorry. That's right. Somebody here knows Moira. Where are you? Who's been speaking to Moira? Someone's been here named Moira.
There was someone here this morning sitting there called Moira.
Pardon?
There's someone sitting behind called Moira.
Oh, do you know, that's right. Someone just said MM. They've got two names, both beginning with M.
I work with Moira.
Oh, well, never mind.
Go on, I'm Margaret Maureen.
No.
And Maureen Mickleborough.
You've got a friend, though. We've got lots of Moiras now. Whoever it was, it's someone that's been here because the sound is here, and someone has spoken to them, someone's had a contact, and someone that might be dark in colouring. What's the person like? Is she dark in colouring? Pardon, that's fine. Because whatever it is, that's where it lies. And there's just someone just tuned in as must say, well, if you can do that. And I just lifted myself up, and there it was. Someone trying to get in, and they gave me M. So I felt that there were two M's somewhere in their name. Anyway, do you think? Pardon? Oh, is it? Oh, well, that's all right, as long as there's an M there. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, what we've got to learn all the time is that you're dealing with two lots of senses. And you start off by making one work. Then you use the same method with your other senses. But this time, it's not people in this world, it's people in the next world. So you don't go and say, I'm coming to you as your mother passed over, because you're back with this person. What you've got to do is to get the lady that says, I have a lady here who says that you're her daughter. Or a lady here who says she wants her name is so she wants to talk to you, know who she is. You're putting the emphasis onto the spirit and not onto the person. You see, that is the difference. The changeover from one to the other. And you find that by so doing, then you learn to use your spiritual senses because you've got to make them work. You have got to do it, the spirit world can't. You've got to do it. And your power is what you develop to enable the vision to come. So it builds, you see, because you are now building all the time. And as you're talking and receiving and feeling, so the whole contact is building till you've got a complete bridge whereby both forces can come together. The spiritual forces down to us. Interesting, isn't it? Now then, ladies and gentlemen, we now realize, because of this particular sort of way of how we begin to learn that you are in two worlds. You all are. Ghosts are everywhere where you go, ladies and gentlemen. In your bedroom, in your kitchen, in your cellar, at work, in the shops, in the stores. When you're walking around, there are ghosts there. And there's nothing you can do about it. So you've got to accept it. Those so-called ghosts that people talk about are your friends, your family, who are occasionally shopping with you, who are occasionally there with you, trying to get their information across, trying to tell you that they're with you. How can they say to you, which they do, I saw you in the supermarket buying so-and-so. I saw you do so-and-so before you came out. How could they do it unless they were there to see it? And they did see it. They did watch it. They did tell us those things because they are there. And when the medium gives the power, they put it across to us. The difference between yourselves is A, you have the power, B, that you can't use your other senses, so you're walking through it and you're unconscious of it. Now when a medium does it, you see a medium come along and say, oh yes, just met somebody in spirit, but you don't stop. I mean, fancy us going along the road. Can you imagine? I mean, fancy all of them. Mind you, you might do it, I don't know, but I'm sure you would. I mean, fancy Arthur going along the road, and I'm walking with him all at once, say, by the way, Arthur, do you know Fred? Yes, I do, he's here. Right in the middle of the road, you know, and probably walking across the pedestrian crossing. And all at once you cross there, somebody goes right between us, you know. I must tell you a very nice story, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe that's the best of it. Because I had a very good friend in the army, and he was a Roman Catholic. And you can well imagine, spiritually, we didn't blend at all. But we blended very well if we left spiritualism and Catholicism alone. Now, I didn't mind talking about Catholicism. It's when he knocked spiritualism that I didn't like it. So I used to say to him, well, no, we're very good friends. Let's leave religion out of it, you know. And we loved music, and we were very, very friendly indeed. But he was very psychic, you know. And when I went into the forces, of course, being a spiritualist, you can well imagine what it was like. My life was hell. Because if anything was missing, it was me. My spirits had taken it, you see. Oh, you should have been in the army in those days, 40-odd years ago. My word, it really was hell. But nevertheless, after a while, they sort of realized they weren't going to get rid of me and push me around. I was able to sort of stand my ground. And this friend of mine said, oh, spiritualists. You know, said it in a nasty tone. And I used to be there, and they used to ask for all our religions, you know, especially on Sundays. And everybody used to go to their various things, Methodists over here, and Church of England over there, Roman Catholics over there, and non-conformists and so on. And I used to be there on my own. And they said, well, what religion are you? And I said, oh, atheist. I said, I'm not an atheist, it's my religion. No such religion. Well, anyway, you can really imagine it went all the way around. You know what he is doing. He's a spiritualist, one of those very funny devils. Watch when you sit down and things disappear when he's around. All that sort of thing. Well, I stood my ground, and I used to say, well, when we was at Bodmin in Cornwall, of course, where I was, there were no spiritualist churches down there. So, of course, I couldn't go anywhere. But when we went to Southampton, of course, there was a spiritualist church. So, by that time, I started my little circle in the barrack room. Started with about 4 of us, then it came to about 8, then 20, then 30, until all the barrack rooms at certain times, they used to start sort of sneaking down into our barrack rooms, where we were. And before I knew where they were all crowded in, and everybody said, oh, these are all in here for you, see. They'd all heard that we were going to have a circle or something, so I used to sort of give demonstrations of mediumship and demonstrations. Well, this friend of mine, by this time, he was absolutely fuming, spiritualism. So he said, it will take more than this to convince me. Well, we were lying in our barrack room, quite peaceful and happy. When all at once, halfway through the night, he came up to me and said, I know what you're doing, I know what you're doing. You're trying to make me believe. He said, I know you're taking my blankets off my bed. I didn't even move. Across the other side. So I said, go to sleep. I said, I didn't dream of such a thing. We're all tired. Have you ever tried to wake people up in a barrack room with me? What's going on? Boots and all sort of things are thrown at you. Anyway, I went to sleep again. And now it came again. And he said, you've done it again. I said, oh, no, honestly, I haven't moved. Oh, for heaven's sake. Get in my bed and I'll go and get in yours. So I went across to his bed because I was always tired. And he was in mine, I went off to sleep, which I could always sleep very well. And all at once he was back and you've done it in that bed. I had two friends of mine who were very good friends, and they used to sit with me. I said, now look. I said, look, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll push the 3 beds together, and 4 of us will have to lie together. So I said, and for heaven's sake, I said, just go to sleep. Well, the blankets this time had to be long ways, you know, not short ways, long ways. So there we were, and I was tucked up in bed. No, it was like these blankets are going funny. And I was holding on to my blankets. Where I knew everybody was holding on to them. 4 others were there. The blankets were being taken from us. All our feet had gone. You know, all the blankets on the feet had gone. And they all looked. I said, I've never had this before. What on earth have you done? We turned on this friend of mine, who's now in the spirit world, and turned on him and said, what have you done? Oh, he said, have I done it? So I said, yes, you have. What have you said? Come on, now, what have you said? So he said, well, they were telling me about this little guide of yours and doing such wonderful things. I said, never do that to me. I sure, my word, they'll never get away with that to her. And there I could hear her laughing, saying, couldn't I? He became a great spiritualist. And he and I used to go for a walk, and he had terrific power. And when we used to go for our strolls and walks, we used to hear the most peculiar things. And things used to pass in front of us. And he'd say, what was that? I said, I have no idea. Well, it always happens when you're here, you know. You say, it's not me that's the medium, it's you that's the medium. But he had tremendous powers, wonderful powers. When we were together, marvelous things happened, because he had this proper power, if he could really have stayed alive. And in this world, he would have been a marvelous medium, because he had terrific powers. And he did it. Well, I must tell you about Southampton, because it was very, or talk about it even today. The church there is in the Avenue. It's the biggest church in Southampton. I knew it was there. One day, I said I was going to go to a service, to a spiritualist church. So they all must have said, oh, well, we will. Well, it was very funny, because the Roman Catholics now had dwindled down to very few. And the Methodists hadn't got very many. And the Church of England hadn't got very many. For some unknown reason, from one spiritualist, about 50 now were in the spiritualist. So the company commander must have come and said, well, what all that good there? Well, for some unknown reason, sir, they've all turned spiritualists. And so he said, well, where are they going? They said, there's a church, they're going off. So they put me in charge of this garden. I had to march all these men through the town of Southampton, right in front of the church, halt them, go into the church, and they were all looking, you know. I think they thought it was a takeover. And so I walked down the drive of the Avenue Church in Southampton, and I said, my name is Gordon Higginson, I am a medium. I'm in the battalion here, and we've come for morning service. Well, there must have been about 40 people in this church. So they said, well, we've never had a sort of a service like this before. Where'd you go? I said, we come in. So they said, well, we shall have to tell the medium, because the medium probably feel this, you know, be a bit awkward. So I said, oh, no, we've got to come to the service. Well, you know, ladies and gentlemen, every one of that congregation came out, let us go in, then filled the empty chairs. Now that was marvellous, you know, really. We didn't ask for that, but that's what they did. They all came outside, let us file in, and get to our seats, and then they filled. The balcony had never been used in that church for years. And it was the first time on a Sunday morning they'd even packed the balcony that was upstairs, and they were all soldiers, all men, all sitting there, never been to a church. You were all sitting there wondering, you don't know what's happening, you see here. And it was a Miss White from London that came onto the platform. And of course, I think she nearly died when she saw all the soldiers there. But it was a wonderful experience. I think it was probably the first and the only time that there'd ever been a spiritual service held for soldiers during the war. But it was in Southport, Southampton Spiritual Church, the Avenue. So it was quite a good experience to see them there. Questions, ladies and gentlemen? Any questions?
Could you explain
My name is Mrs. Sedgwick. Could you explain to me how I understand that when a baby passes over, it grows, continues to grow. Can you explain to me the reason why? And how long they have to stay like that? Do they reincarnate after a period of time?
Yes. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, you remember the little girl I was talking to you about that came to this family where I told you that they'd had 4 children, lots of them, and they had the handicapped son. And that the next child that also died, after that they would have a little girl. Their first child was a baby daughter that was stillborn. It was the same child reincarnated. In other words, they had to come back to the family. How I knew is because while this was going on in the service, I named her very recently. The whole story unfolded, you see here. And I had to ask if the first child was definitely a girl. And they said yes. And I said, well, you are very lucky because your first child has had to wait. And had she not have had this child, then this child would have had to wait and come back to another member of that family, would have had to come to the family. And that's really what happens. Many of the stillborn children, although they do manifest in the spirit world, if there is no sort of life for them here, they probably in any way will live it in the other world. But if they are to come back, they come to the family. We have a case at the moment where 2 great friends of mine who are very great spiritualists and plays a very important part. He and his wife have been friends of mine for over 40 years. And I knew them before they were married, both of them, and we are personal friends. I had never known until 3 Christmases ago, and I stay with them usually for a day or so during Christmas. We always have done. And while we were sitting, enjoying ourselves really, I went into a state of trance. It was just the friends that were there, just a few of us, and they were all spiritualists. And I went into a trance, and my control came through and spoke to them and said, we now will tell you, you have never told anyone, but you had a son that you lost. It was stillborn. And they said, yes. You know, we've been waiting for years. We could never understand why God will never give it to us before. And the Spirit said there was no reason to, because the child was waiting to be reborn. And it has come as their grandchild, their grandson. And they've told them that. It was the most marvelous thing, but it was the original child that was theirs, that they lost, and no one knew. They'd never said it. They often wondered why it had never come, and that was the reason. It was because it was being prepared again to live, so there was no communication. You see, there it was, waiting for the opportunity. The soul was still as it was, and although the stillborn had, the individuality was there, so it had to come within the family. So the first grandson, the first grandchild, was this boy. And the strange thing is, he's so like his grandfather. Absolutely, the image of his grandfather. And that's how it comes about. So we can't always lay down a hard and fast rule. There is a case of 2 people that attended my course, and on certain of my courses, I insist that every person on the course has an assessment, because I believe in assessments, spiritual assessments. And it happened to, so happened that Ron Baker should have been doing them, and he was not well, so he couldn't do any of them. And so I said, all right, I'll do them. So I did the lot. I had to do 90 in a week, plus all my lectures. So I was working till 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning getting through these assessments. But I was delighted by it because a gentleman came that was in spiritism really more or less for his first time. And he came for assessment because he was very convinced and wanted to go. And I said to him, there is something to do with a grandson. You're going to have a grandson. There is a boy here, and he is going to be born to you. but this boy has lived before, you've definitely lost a son. And he said, oh no, definitely not. I said, well, I'm sorry, I definitely see this, because this is what I see. It's definitely a son, and he's going to be reborn. And it's going to come very, very soon. So he said, well, this thing is like followed everything you've given to him, but that's impossible. He said, first of all, he said, and I said, it's got to happen, John, in the next 2 years. So he said, went out, and he said to his wife, well, Mr. Higginson, he said, I mean, I hate to say Mr. Higginson, possibly wrong. He said, because I daren't say it to him, really. But he said, I'm sure he is. He said, it just can't happen. He said, the first place, I haven't lost a son. He said, and secondly, he said, it's impossible for me to have a grandchild because, A, my daughter isn't, I think at the time she was only about 14 or 15, something like that. And he said, and she doesn't like children. He says, and she's never going to get married because she said so. And she doesn't like children at all. He said, and my boy's 10. He said, how on earth can he have which you know this? Well, I didn't realize at the time that this lady that was there was his second wife. I mean, I knew that they were married, and but I didn't know that there was that she was the second wife because she didn't have an assessment from me, the wife. But the gentleman did. Well, they never said anything to me, but they'd written it down and had it recorded, what I said. And last year, they came to me to my course, and they both had an assessment, asked if they could come together. So I said, well, I don't like to see two people together, but being as it's an assessment, I see it. All right, if it doesn't work and I feel that it's wrong, you'll have to go out, and I'll take 1 this time. Anyway, they sat together, and I said, well, I don't know. I don't know what I told you before. I said, but there's a most marvellous little boy here. I said, he's definitely coming, and he's so close to you. I can't understand this. And he said, well, you have told me about this, he said, and I must confess, Mr. Higginson, that I thought you were entirely wrong. He said, but I will tell you the story. He said, my daughter did decide to go and marry, she said, and I stupidly, at the time, as I thought, gave permission for her to get married. And they weren't going to have any family, neither of them. But she had a little boy. And she said she was so ill about this little boy that she had to stay in hospital. And when she came out, she couldn't, their husband told them not to let her have the child for a while. And so the grandmother, which was the lady that didn't have the assessment, in actual fact, is looking after the child. And the child now won't have the mother, but has only the grandmother. And before she married him, she'd had a stillborn child. Now, ladies and gentlemen, think about it. He didn't know that, but it came out. And so what has happened is, quite rightly, it is the same child. And the soul that came, you see, was had to come again. And the grandmother that wanted a child, she can't have any children, you see. She does know that. And she had to have an operation that prevented her from having children. And so she had lost this only child that she'd ever had, and there was no way she could have another. And yet you see his daughter, which is her stepdaughter, has had the son. And the son, she's had to look after it. And the son now responds to the grandmother more than to the mother. And they want to keep it, you see, if they can, whether the daughter will let them is another matter. But that's what we're saying. It's a very strange thing. Now, what else happens? Well, now, ladies and gentlemen, could I just have that flower? Just give me one. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you see this flower? Now, it's now grown till it's really at its perfect best. And very soon it will start withering and dying. Now, when you mature, you as a spirit, you take the point into your life when you have blossomed at your fullest and best. And when you grow old, you do not ever go into the spirit world growing old. You go at your perfect best. The child in the spirit world is not to come back to the earth, but we communicate with. Don't remain as a child, only for you to recognize them. And they mature until they blossom like the daffodils of the meadow. There's a time in your lifespan when you begin to age. You reach your fulfillment. And it can then, from that fulfillment, what is now happening to this flower, you see it. That beautiful flower, which opened up really and radiated its best, is now moving away from it. That's why it's dying. Because it's now in front of it. And this is slowly dying, and the spiritual one is there forever, blossoming, blooming, perfect. And it's exactly what's happening to you. What really is happening to you is when your spirit comes into your body with your soul, you mature to the physical likeness that you're supposed to have. At your best, when you're right at the peak of your living, when you're beautiful and magnificent, that's where you go in. That's how you move into the spirit world. So even though you've become 102, you'll go into the spirit world around your 30s, 35s to 40s, when you're really at your best. So that's how you go. So what's happening is your real self is coming right from nothing, moving, blossoming, growing, spring, summer, autumn, winter, moving away. So you have opened up, matured, moving out. And your body is falling away. That's all that's happened to you. As you're growing old, it's your body that's falling away. That's all it is. That's all it is. And you are at your best. And when you move out into the spirit world, they see you at your perfect best. And when you meet people you have known, you go to the age of where you met them. So when your husband was when you met him and you first loved him, you'll go right back to that particular time. And you'll meet him in exactly the same circumstances, in exactly the same place where your love first came together. That's how you live your life again. You go through it. And it all happens without days and nights. That's why you are as you are. And that's what waits you. You see, your life goes from that moment. So your age is only of the body, it's nothing to do with the soul. And when you're in the spirit world, one of our mediums should be shot because she gave on to television that a child goes into a capsule and waits until it is reborn. And I've never heard such nonsense before. You don't come into the world in a capsule. There's no such thing as a capsule. You are blossomed, functioning with love. Unless you can really begin to see what the spirit world is like, you see all that makes utter nonsense of spiritualism. What really happens is there's growth. Now the child that I've told you is waiting and waiting. It is waiting with love. It's as though it's still pulsating, waiting for birth. It's within the sort of life force of the universe. It's waiting there, and at the point of when the soul then is moved into the seed of when growth becomes, they find themselves still like that, you see. And they're growing until they can really mature. And it's still taking place. And you see, to them, it's only like a second away, because there's no such thing as time. But that's the story. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're not going old. The body is, yes. Makes us we can't stand up and sit down. But there's always something beautiful ahead. And you see, when we look at you, We look at your body and say, yes, you're marvelous, but when we look at you, we see that radiance of your spirit, and that is very lovely. You must keep it like that, not very strong. Do you understand that? Isn't it nice? But that is how it is. So, you see, if you lose a child, don't worry, ladies and gentlemen. I know how hard it is for you to have a child and then to lose it. But you never know, it might be your next child back again. And if you don't hear from the spirit world, that means they're somewhere around. And they could be being prepared to be reborn. And sometimes your grandchild or your great-grandchild can be that little one you once loved, hoping to have, and it wasn't just the time for it. And it's like mongrel children, you know. Mongrel children are really new souls. They're very new souls. They have come with an awful lot of love. They don't understand nestings. And they are there to give love. They can tell us about love. They've got such a lot to give. They're a new soul that haven't touched the nasty things of life. And you must always know that. It's like many of the handicapped children, really. They're new souls. They'll be born again. They'll come. They've got to fulfill their life. And they have a beautiful life. Well looked after. So don't worry. That's it. Spiritualist and to live it, we ought to go right back. You see, we should retrace our steps and realize that in the times of Jesus, that to give the right body, we should have the right bodies to do it. We've lost really the art of finding the right things because we allow the wrong things. See, when Jesus came into the world, Joseph and Mary were actually brought together because they had to provide the right body, so that the soul could express itself in the right way. And you'll find that many of the great prophets, that the right body had to be found because it was right for their particular work upon the earth. And you do see that. It comes in very, very mysterious way. The spirit world now are preparing because there will come not a Messiah. We don't want Messiahs, really. I mean, the idea, people say there will come the new Messiah, which will be God, that will manifest again. And some people say he's already here, but I can assure you he's not. There's no such thing. Jesus, if he wanted to come, could manifest and come physically to us if he wants to do, as he was. They don't have to be reborn and go through this again. They've gone through it all, so there's no need for it. But they are preparing for someone to lead the world. You see, the time will come when the world will, the barriers in the nations will disappear. They've got to do. That's why the common market came into being. We've always forecast it would. It's always been forecast that various things are to happen, and we are moving toward it. That is why Prince Charles, of course, is extremely psychic, and why he's very involved in psychic, especially astrology and things of that sort. He's very interested in social spirituality. It's a very major part of our work to understand the cycles through which we must pass.
And the ancient wisdom.
Sorry? The ancient wisdom, that's right. But the 7 pillars of wisdom, of which we spoke about in the ancient wisdom, are the 7 states of which the world will become. And there will come to be the world leader who will come. And I'm sorry, ladies, it's not a lady, it's definitely a man. It's to be that, because it's already going through its process now. That's why spiritualism is being in demand all over the world now, because that body is going through generations of clearings and to find the right body that will house the right spirit to bring the bite of change from the age of which we're in to the new spiritual age, which is the golden age of mankind. And we're going through it now. So the change has already taken place. And as the changes take place, which they will, and unfortunately there will be a lot of disasters before it takes place, they're already taking place, then as it clears, the leadership will come. There's no leader in the world today that can do that, because they're too fastened in with very limited views. This has to be a very wide person with no particular view, except to bring a brotherhood and a united world. And it's been going through now. And you might not know it, but you might be helping. You don't know it.